Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back from New York City. Our live coverage of WCS America. I'm Axel Toss, joined by Axlab. We're through 2 matches. They both went to 3 games, and now we're set and ready to go to our 3rd match. Before we get into it, though, youtube.com/official MLGSE2. If you are looking for Starcraft to watch, if you watch this entire stream and then afterwards you're like, you know what, I want to watch more Starcraft. Every single thing we've streamed here in the studio is on YouTube in 1080p HD. You can go watch it right now if you want. Maybe in between games, you can go watch other Starcraft matches while a commercial's happening or something, and then you can pause it.
Watch it play the days.
Yes.
They're only like a minute long.
Sure.
So, boom, you got just 9-second break between every game here. You can
There you go.
roll out one of those play the days.
Yeah, definitely check that out. Of course, that being said, let's take a look at what has happened so far today. Of course, we started off the day with Major versus Killer. Killer taking the 2-1 victory, and then we had Vibe versus Bales. Vibe taking the 2-1 victory there, which is going to lead us into our winners match. It's going to be Killer versus Vibe, a best of 3 to determine who's going to advance to the Premier League of WCS America Season 2. And of course, the losers match will be in between Major and Bales, which will come directly after Killer versus Vibe. The loser of Major versus Bales will be out of WCS America and will have to re-qualify through the qualifiers. The winner of that will advance to the last match of the night to play the loser of Killer versus Vibe. Hopefully that makes sense, but I'm definitely looking forward to it.
Bottom line is you got to win twice.
Yes.
Win twice, you win again to Premier League of Season 2. So the winner of this is going to get straight to that Season 2. Premier League of Season 2.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yes, I do.
It's between Vibe and Killer, and
Yes.
both these guys are Zerg. Both these guys were very successful from their respective regions in 2012. But in 2013, I would say Killer has shown so far more promise. If we look at the MLG Winter Championships, you know, he made it to the round of 16. He took out Thorzane. It was a big win. Whereas Vibe didn't really show quite as good form there. I think, was he up against Sen? I know he lost in the first round. I think it was up against Sen.
You're right.
Yeah. Which, of course, no shame losing his Sen, but didn't have that breakout performance that Killer did. Game number 1 is going to be an Akalon Waste.
It is indeed. Akalon Wastes, again, one of those cookie cutter maps that we see a lot. Now, it is going to be ZVZ, and this is a matchup that has, been dramatically changing.
I don't think I've seen Killer ZVZ in Heart of
Yeah, I
Storm.
haven't either. I'm really looking forward to this, so I'm just going to hit the start game button.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's ZVZ is a matchup where, of course, the Spore Crawler change recently happened, so we're seeing a lot of intriguing metagame shifts as far as, okay, do I get a fast third? Do I just focus on Ling upgrades and just completely mass Ling Baneling to prevent the mutas from going across the map? Do I go into Hydras if I spot my opponent going mutas? Is one Spore Crawler enough at each base? Am I still forced to go mutas? Does it depend on the map? There's a lot of interesting things that happen in ZVZ, so I'm really looking forward to this. And I'm gonna be taking some notes because I need some good ZVZ builds. That's the matchup that's giving me a little bit of trouble right now. But here we are in the winners match, game 1. On Akalon Waste. In the bottom right-hand location, I proudly present your Red Zerg player representing Team Root Gaming and hailing from the United States of America. Just took out Bales 2-1 to get to this point. He is Vibe.
Of course, the 2012 USA first place and second place in the 2012 North America WCS.
Ignore the EG logo. He is on Root Gaming, I promise. His opponent in the top left-hand location. Blue Zerg player representing Team Clarity Gaming Academy. Took down Major 2-1 to get to this point. Hoping to get a spot in Premier League Season 2. He is Killer.
Of course, Killer is a 2012 WCS South America champion. So we have number 2 from NA last year versus number 1 from SA last year. Kind of a classic matchup here in the Americas. Both these guys are guys who I think most people would say belong in the Premier League. But only one can make it through this winner's match. The loser will have to go down to face the winner of either Major or Bales, which is another chance for elimination that you really don't want to have to face.
And speaking of which, yesterday is a great example where we had WCS advance to the winner's match. He ended up losing to Max Ed after beating Hart 2-0. But then he had to face the STC in the winners match, and the STC ended up winning that. So,
yes.
WCS was very close to qualifying for the Premier League Season 2, but STC coming back and taking that victory in that last match. So, neither of these players obviously want to drop down to that final match of the day. They want to stamp their ticket in the Premier League Season 2 right now. And as far as predictions are concerned, I feel like this could go either way.
It definitely could. You know, I said I haven't seen Killer ZVZ recently, and this is kind of interesting. He went pool, gas, then hatchery. But not like the 14 gas, 14 pool, so not like super fast speed. But he's going to have faster speed than Vibe. On the other hand, Vibe has a little more minerals to play with. So you can see his hatchery was slightly faster, his queen was slightly faster, and he has a little bit more minerals in the bank right now. You know, 120 minerals, and he's actually up by food as well. One more drone. Actually, he doesn't have another drone. He has 2 extra Zergians, so he needs to scout.
So we'll have to see what ends up happening here. Of course, if we're talking about speed advantage early on in the game, you know, some players will... Oh, he's actually pulling 2 drones out of gas. That's pretty interesting. You know, as far as ZVZ is concerned, the early game, you know, a lot of it comes down to Ling Baneling. And you know, can you make enough Lings and Banelings to threaten your opponent, get them scared, get them making units and not drones, while droning it behind it? That's something that some Zerg players like to do. Try to get their opponent to overcommit while transitioning back home. And it all comes down to identifying what your opponent is doing, how much your opponent is investing into potential aggression, and being like, okay, is this an all-in, or is this a fake? Do I need to be making drones or more units? Because if you make a wave of units when you should be making a wave of drones, it's actually super important in the long run.
And that's exactly why Vibe is making these Zergians to try to keep track of exactly what his opponent is up to. And in fact, Killer is making a lot of speedings around the way. Can Vibe identify this? Zergian's going to try to make their way into the main, but a queen from the main is actually going to the ramp. Oh, I don't think they saw anything.
Now the Killer is not intending to go all in with this, I don't think. I mean, he doesn't have a Baneling Nest, and if you're trying to kill your opponent with only speedlings in ZVZ,
well, this is a build we've seen before, and it's worked in the past sometimes. If your opponent, if you hit right before they have Banelings with overwhelming numbers of speedings, if their queens are not on the ramp, but Vibe sees it now. Yeah. He sees it going past. Can he get the queens on the ramp to block in time?
Yeah, and Killer
He's not even trying to.
He's got to make Banelings right away. The queen's not going to block. Okay, he's going to use the Lings to block.
He does have a spine crawler.
All right, making 2 Banelings at the top of the ramp, and Killer's going to swing around and go up there again. This is why it's important to have those queens there to block it off so the Lings can't do this. But speed is finishing up here for Vibe. 2 Banelings in production, needs to make some more. He has 124 gas in the bank. No reason not to make a couple more Banelings here. We see drones in production behind this. We talked about this. Killer, again, just trying to be as annoying as possible, threatening his opponent, trying to force as many Banelings out, as many units out as possible while droning back home. And Vibe should be able to deal with this without too much trouble. Yeah,
I don't think Killer got the damage done he wanted to get done. The key thing there is Vibe had plenty of larva, so he was able to build a lot of his own speedlings. If, for example, he wasn't able to get that giant swell of speedlings, then the speedlings that ran by and got into his main could have done tremendous damage. But now it's Vibe on the counterattack. Killer, no Banelings yet. Spine Core is still not quite yet done, and Vibe has a lot of speedlings attacking him right now.
Swarming into the natural expansion here, and again, the Baneling Nest is not yet complete, and this is the danger of not going or delaying that Baneling Nest in ZVZ. Your opponent's Lings and Banelings can get a lot of damage done to you if you don't have optimal micro. Vibe is not done. 2 Banelings coming forward, actually going to explode onto the queens, and Vibe's going to take one of them out. One of them going to sneak away. Another Baneling coming forward, but now Killer getting his own Banelings on the field behind this. Vibe adding on a gas, adding on +1 carapace for his Zergling, so definitely going to be transitioning.
And Vibe has a significant drone advantage. Some great... Oh, wow, nice Baneling hit. I think he got 5 or 6 there.
Definitely worth it.
Some nice micro by Killer, focusing the Banelings with the queens there to stay alive, but Vibe still has a significant advantage going forward, just as far as the total workers he has on the field is able to give him the ability to outproduce his opponent. And right now, that economy is being used to try to get an upgrade advantage.
4 Banelings!
That was almost dangerous for Vibe here.
Yeah, let's see. Vibe needs to still make sure... He's 16 more Lings in the way. Adding on a second spine crawler. Oh, yeah. Adding on a second spine crawler in his natural.
Yeah, I think he's identified the fact that he's going to have the upgrade advantage. So if he can survive, he's going to be in good shape. Also, he's noticed that there's been more and more speedlings being rallied out of Killer's base. Overlord scouting is so important in ZVZ to keep track of how many speedlings are out on the map from your opponent.
2 for 2 is a wash with Banelings. You want to make sure you send in 2 at a time, and that's exactly what Killer is doing. Vibe trying to peel away, trying to be awful with his own Baneling detonations, getting 2 for 3. That's a great trade. Zergling's being annoying. That's just no Vibe. Sending a lot of Lings down the ramp, and Killer had some very solid Baneling connections, but it looks like Killer actually going to come in with some more. 4 more Banelings coming in, 3 Banelings here from Vibe, and Vibe should be fine, I think. Maybe?
Yeah, Killer's in the, you know, Killer has more speedings than Vibe in the main base. Vibe, no queen in the main. Oh, there it goes. Another queen just pops down time. He's been losing a few drones, though. Killer was able to pick off a few in the natural, picking off a few more in the main. Vibe is going to clean this up, but every drone Killer kills is one drone closer to equality than they have. He was down by about 10 to 13 drones. Now he's only down by about 4.
Neither of these guys have any intentions, obviously getting layered just yet. Both focusing on the Ling Baneling production upgrades as well.
Oh,
Vibe gonna run right by these Banelings.
Vibe's armor upgrade is done now. That's so important. That means his speedlings will not die to a single Baneling hit of Killer's. Killer's Banelings heading into the main base of Vibe, or sorry, the natural. But
expansion.
yeah, with the 3 queens and a spine crawl, those are going to do absolutely nothing.
Wow, Vibe going to be happy with that trade. I'm a little bit surprised he didn't try to engage. Okay, he's waiting for Banelings, and he has a lot of Lings at the front door of Killer. And looking at the units tab,
the upgrade advantage
it's 34 to 22. Yeah, the upgrades, absolutely. +1 carapace is huge for these Lings. Vibe might be able to take this right now. A bunch of Banelings trying to be made. The Banelings from Vibe trying to find those and explode into them. And it is going to happen. Every single Baneling is going to be canceled. And I think Vibe just might take this right now.
Yeah, I mean, this is looking really, really bad for Killer here. Drones are having to fight, but against one armor Zerglings, the drones are not good. But now they're trying to flee, but they're being torn to pieces. The Natural's under fire. 28 speedlings from Killer, but it's not going to be enough. Vibe takes that.
GG.
You know, it started with great defense of the initial speeding attack, because Killer did sacrifice a good amount of early econ to make that happen.
Yeah.
And sometimes
didn't even get a Baneling nest.
Yeah.
And remember, he pulled guys off of gas so he can have more money to make more Lings.
And that attack sometimes wins games. If your opponent if they just use their most recent inject on drones, and then they see you attacking, but they only have 2 to 4 larvae, they can only make a few speedlings, you can overrun them. But
I feel like we saw that happen somewhere where the player didn't have an overlord outside of his opponent's natural expansion. Like, you remember what game I'm talking about.
I
think our observer probably does too, but as far as like what game that was, I couldn't tell you. But, it does happen. You're absolutely right. But Vibe had that overlord outside of his natural expansion, was able to identify the Lings coming across the map, and scared us a little bit when he didn't block the ramp.
But he had enough speedlings, it didn't matter. He was able to clean it up. And that's why I think normally Zerg players block the ramp, because they have a hard time getting the 15, 16 speedlings that you need to defend that with just speedlings. But Vibe had enough larvae. His inject timing was just like the inject finished right as he saw the speedling. So he was able to
get those Lings out and not have to worry about maneuvering those queens around, especially when there's not a lot of creeps, so they don't have a great amount of maneuverability. But yeah, that was actually a pretty cool game. It was very entertaining, and Vibe is going to take the 1-0 advantage in this best of 3. Guys, stay tuned. You're watching WCS America, perhaps the final game of the winners match coming up. Stay tuned.